Hi, I'm Boss City Brian. YouTube and social media are full of reports, accusations, and alleged proof of musical artists lip-syncing and or miming to pre-recorded performances. Even artists from the 60s, 70s, and 80s like the Eagles, Kiss, Frankie Valli, John Bon Jovi, and others have been accused of presenting vocals that are not entirely live. Is it right? Is it wrong? As the chatter about artists from the eras that we mainly discuss here on Boss City, the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, has gotten louder, I thought I would address the topic. If you're paying to see someone live in concert, shouldn't the singing and playing be live? Due to technology, that is a complicated question. As advances in music technology has become such a dominant part of modern music making, use of the latest innovations makes sense for artists making records these days. So that creates a dilemma trying to translate what is essentially done on a laptop into a concert performance. Also complicating the issue is that the biggest contemporary artists are expected to stage elaborate musical spectacles with lights, effects, props, while keeping up with professional dancers. At the same time, artists know that every song from every performance will end up on the internet. Every flub lyric, every sour note is going to spread like wildfire on social media. Each performance is scrutinized by thousands and thousands of internet critics, so the pressure to sound perfect is high. Back in the day, concertgoers did not expect to experience live creations of the studio versions of a song. We got what we expected and what we wanted, a live performance by the musicians on stage that night. In some instances, a song could be 5 minutes long one night. On another night, the same song could be 8 minutes with an improvised jam. That's why live albums were so cherished. They were musical snapshots of a particular night on a specific tour. It was different. When I was a teenager, my brother and I paid $10.50 each to see the Eagles at the Forum in Los Angeles in 1980. The 5 Eagles and 2 sidemen played every note live. I went there to hear those voices sing those songs live. If I pay $400 to attend an Eagles concert today, I would be expecting the same thing. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the case. On at least a couple of songs during Eagle concerts, the lead vocals and some of the backing vocals appear to be pre-recorded. This has been discussed in many YouTube videos. I will leave a link below in the description for more details from one of the best videos. If I were to attend a concert by a big current artist, I would expect that some tracks would be used to augment what the live musicians are playing. I would not expect every single vocal to be live without the support of some sort of backing track. Some artists lip sync the entire show. Some artists may not use any backing tracks, but I believe that most would choose to. My expectations at a huge pop artist, multi-million-dollar spectacular would be different than my expectations at an Eagles concert. It may be easy to see things like this as a result of modern technology, but what is missing from the conversation is that lip syncing is nothing new. So I thought I would talk about the long and not always deceptive history of lip syncing. In movie musicals of the 30s, 40s, and 50s, Fred Astaire, Bing Crosby, Frank Sinatra, and the like all would lip sync to a pre-recorded track. The early days of TV coincided with the beginning of music's rock era and provided artists with many opportunities to promote their latest releases by lip-syncing and miming on shows like American Bandstand. The mid-60s ushered in a plethora of local and syndicated music shows such as the Lloyd Thaxton Show, 9th Street West, and Shebang. For these low-budget teen shows, lip-syncing was convenient for the shows and the artists, and the only practical way of presenting the songs. It gave the viewers a chance to see their favorite artists in their own homes. Artists would appear, chat with the host, lip-sync their latest hit, but there was no pretense that the performances were live. The instruments were not plugged in, and the songs would fade out just like the records did. But there was no deception, no trickery. In fact, some artists even drew attention to the fact that they were not singing live. For example, Michelle Phillips of the Mamas and Papas substituting her microphone with a banana and eating it while pretending to sing on the Ed Sullivan Show. Or Mickey Dolenz performing with Dolenz, Jones, Boyce and Hart on Dinah, unplugging his microphone cord while continuing to sing into it, while making a show of the fact that it was disconnected. Or Paul Revere and the Raiders leaving their instruments to engage in silly hijinks on their countless 60s TV appearances. There was always prime time and late night shows where musical acts performed live. Like The Tonight Show, it always featured live performances. Elvis, Buddy Holly, and the Beatles all performed live on the Ed Sullivan Show. But some did not, such as The Lovin' Spoonful, Gary Lewis and the Playboys, and Dino, Desi, and Billy. Some acts would sing live to pre-recorded instrumental tracks as well. On scripted single-camera TV shows, musical performances were always lip-synced due to the technical requirements. When Screen Gems launched the Monkees in 1966, part of the critical backlash developed from the marketing of them as a real band when they were clearly miming on the series. Whispers that the band did not play on their debut album followed. A couple of months later, Michael Nesmith of the Monkees announced that the Monkees were not allowed to play on the first two albums, spawning rumors that their concerts were not live either. Recordings of their 60s concerts leave no doubt that they were playing live. To avoid similar controversy, when Screen Gems produced the Partridge Family TV series for ABC 4 years later, steps were taken to make clear that the Partridge Family was a band in name only. The names of the Wrecking Crew musicians and the backing vocalists were listed on the back of every album cover. And at the end of each episode, a disclaimer appeared stating the voices and music of the Partridge Family were augmented by other performers. Concerts in live venues are a completely different matter. In the late 60s, rock and pop bands were creating more elaborate recordings utilizing increased multi-tracks to include additional instrumentation. This made recreating the songs on stage a challenge. One of the many reasons that the Beatles ceased touring was that the increasing complexity of their later recordings would be impossible to perform live with just a quartet. In the 70s, I remember The Who using a tape for the introduction of Baba O'Reilly, but they did not deny the obvious fact that there was no one on stage playing those notes. In 1978, ELO was sued by a U.S. promoter, a promoter of one of their concerts, for using backing tracks instead of playing everything live. The case was settled out of court and there really wasn't much details. It was impossible for Queen to recreate the operatic section of Bohemian Rhapsody in concert, so they, the band, would leave the stage while a tape played that part of the song. When the original lineup of Kiss would perform the highly orchestrated ballad Beth, Peter Criss would sit alone on the stage and sing live to a tape of the piano and strings from the original LP. Now everyone knew what was going on. There was no deception because it was clear that there was no piano or 20-piece orchestra on stage. Artists from the 60s, 70s, and 80s now have their own dilemma. They desire to keep performing, but their voices have a lot of miles on them. And some singers just can't hit all the notes. So they have a few options. They can lower the keys to the songs. They can sing live with a vocal track that will be turned up on parts that are challenging. Or they can lip sync the entire concert like Paul Stanley and Frankie Valli have been accused of doing. There is a YouTube video of an Eric Carmen concert from 2000 where he tells the audience that he wrote the Raspberries song, I Want to Be With You, at age 22 with no regard for the possibility of singing at age 50. And as a result, there's one note he can no longer get. And he tells the audience when the song reaches that part, one of the other band members will be singing it. You know, I found that refreshingly honest. Unlike these examples, many of the cases of modern artists being accused of lip-syncing and miming, often with undeniable evidence, are doing so under the guise of performing live. My contention is that any artist should have the freedom to use any available technology to present a concert in any manner that they see fit. However, I also believe that ticket buyers should be made aware of the fact that sounds that they hear may not be emanating from people on stage. They should know what they are going to be getting, especially how exorbitant ticket prices are. So I suggest that we look to one of the masters of lip syncing, the Partridge family. I believe, like at the end of their TV show, a disclaimer should be present at the point of purchase for the tickets, stating that the show includes pre-recorded elements or something like that. Otherwise, it's false advertising in my book. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Oh, and please like and subscribe. Until next time, this is Boss City Brian reminding you to not tug on Superman's cape. Many blessings. See you next time. Bye for now.